Welcome to the Build Your Beautiful Business podcast with your host, Julie C. Butler. If you're looking to build the business of your dreams, then this is the space you want to be in. Join Julie as she talks about ways that you can successfully scale your profitable dream business, one that will give you ultimate time freedom and the abundant lifestyle you deserve. Julie will take you by the hand, sharing with you her business savvy strategies as she chats it up with her favorite online entrepreneurs. You'll get a weekly dose of boosted confidence as you learn as they reveal their insight, tips, and tools that you need to start building a profitable dream business of your own, one that you'll love and that works for you on autopilot.
Hey there, welcome back to the BBB podcast. I'm your host, Julie C. Butler. Today on the show, we have the beautiful Paige Brisson. Paige is a subconscious health practitioner, published writer, and award-winning impact speaker stationed in Colorado. She is the founder and owner of her integrative practice, Realm Wellness, where she aids clients around the globe in processing the emotions and memories that signal present-day stress by using over 14 plus different modalities from Eastern and Western medicine combined. Her work is fueled by losing a decade of her life to anorexia, depression, anxiety, self-harm, and trauma. Hey, Paige, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to finally meet you today. We've known each other a little bit for the last little while, but we've never met face to face. And so it's so nice to finally make a connection.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel the same way. And I just love hopping on because it's one thing on social media when you have the energy and you have perceptions of what somebody might be like. And you and I share this Women Thrive community connection. But then meeting in person, it's like we've known each other for a long time. So I love that.
Right? I know, totally. And I mean, like, it's so cool because, like, obviously before I hit the record button for the podcast, for us to start talking about what we're going to start talking about, it's so nice to connect, right? Especially that, we have things in common and stuff like that. And it's just so really cool to make new business relationships, right? New friendships.
Absolutely. I feel like that is the value of being an entrepreneur, being a solopreneur, and having to build that community. That's been something I've worked to do since the get. And I've really discovered how game-changing that is just to have people in your corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. It's so important. And I think that it can make your business journey so much more fun too, right?
Oh, 100%. And I just love, especially being amongst such powerhouse women, people like yourself, and surrounding yourself around a like energy. And I love when there are people out there that are doing similar things in different ways, but then also different things in similar ways, and just seeing the nuances of how we can come together. And there's always a reason why we end up aligning with who we align with, right?
Totally, totally. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe truly that we are meant to, have the interactions that we're supposed to have. So I think that it's so important to have an open mind and be open to the opportunities that are to come because they're usually there for a reason, which is so cool. And I think when we understand that, it just makes it so much more fun. And you can legit, I sit here sometimes and I'm like, I can't believe that this is my business, right? And not even for people buying my stuff. I mean, for the friendships that I've made, for the people that I've met. It's just so incredible that we get to do this and we get to hang out with people from all over the world of different, backgrounds, different businesses, different, like you said, right? Doing things in similar ways or not similar ways. And right? It's just it's just so cool. And it's really, truly fulfilling.
It really is. And it's unexpected how fulfilling it is because I built my business a few years ago. I launched it into the world and I was really, living on a prayer, operating on hopes and dreams and not really in the logistical, pragmatic brain about what it looked like to get this thing going. But I find sometimes when it comes to this cultural phenomenon of the hustle and the grind, that being online, especially being a practitioner or a coach or a therapist or whatever it is that you offer, is like a needle in a haystack, not just for yourself to build your presence, but for clients to be like, oh my gosh, it's information overload. And so on the back end, it can be stressful because you're in your brain about it. And then all the emotions are there. And what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do better? And I just find that having these concrete connections with people who are doing something similar on the back end of trying to figure things out for themselves in a really holistic way of, listen, I'm going through a lot in my life right now, and that might be showing up on social media, or how can I be more authentic as I'm going through this thing? All of these animate questions I find inform an animate business. And so being able to connect with each other in the thick of all of that really is so crucial.
Mm-hmm. I know. And so, yeah, definitely. Like, I think like encourage people, right? Like make those connections, because it can truly change your business in ways that you did not expect or know that it was possible. So it's true, really, really cool. But today we're going to talk about as within, so without, building an embodied business. It's kind of relevant to what we were talking about in a sense. But before we get going, I would love for you to take a moment and introduce yourself.
You bet. Yeah, I know. I'm already just chatting away because it's so fun already. But my
But
name is,
that's what I love about these coffee chats, right? Like
yeah.
this, no formalities, just go and, have a sip of coffee and talk.
Absolutely. Yeah, we want it to be really cozy and comfy. I love that. So, yeah, my name is Paige. I'm a subconscious health practitioner. I'm a published author and an award-winning impact speaker. And I am the owner and founder of my integrative business, Realm Wellness, where I help people around the globe processing stuck emotions and memories that signal present day stress in the subconscious mind. And I'm really, really passionate about helping people know that they're designed to heal on a cellular level, regardless of symptoms and diagnoses and relationship and thought patterns and whatever they might be struggling with. So that is my mission in the world.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm like gonna text my husband, because I'm like, I trusted that my dogs would be good when I was here. Can you come get the dogs?
I
That
love that.
isn't it the beauty of working a business from home, and letting your trusting that your dogs will behave during your podcast interview, but
Yeah.
then they don't.
Oh, it's always a gamble. I've got mine behind me too today, and like the emotional, energetic support is so amazing. But then there was one session recently where she just wouldn't stop whining because she has to have her dinner on time. And I was like, dude, calm it down. Like, I haven't forgotten about you, you know?
Or snoring in the background.
Totally. It's
Yeah,
charming.
it's all good. Anyway, so nice to meet you. Okay,
You
so
too.
let's dive in. Okay, what does it mean to have an embodied business?
My goodness. I mean, as the title of the podcast episode, as within, so without, right? You hear as above, so below. And I find that our businesses, when it comes to holistic work in whatever way you want to apply that theosophy or philosophy, is to be holistic in your lifestyle, in your principles, in your emotional awareness, right? To be an embodied human, I find automatically translates into having an embodied business. And so you see people, like we were talking about, the rat race culture, hustle, grind, pushing themselves beyond their limits, really disembodied, really outside of themselves, because they're operating from like a top down mind to body perception. And I am really wanting to have more of like a body based, intuitive, heart centered business where I am that as a human. And how can I amplify that into the work that I offer so that my clients feel that way, so that marketing is minimal because they can feel me and they can really desire just to work in this energy, right? Because at the end of the day, regardless of the to-dos and the endless list of checking things off, it's about how people feel, right? It's about how people feel in your presence. And so I really work to honor my cycles so that I can honor business cycles, and honor my emotions so I can honor my clients' emotions. And ultimately, it's about not pouring from an empty cup, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think, like, also this, and allowing yourself to build, to have an embodied business, will just make it more pleasant, right?
Absolutely. I mean, without a doubt, it feels more authentic. And I find that,
Mm-hmm.
especially being online these days, it's so hard to discern and parse through who is authentic and who's not, who's selling me this thing, but what's really going on in their life. Are they walking their walk? Are they talking their talk? And this can go so big. Like these are just the basics that we're talking about right now. And it seems commonsensical to talk about it this way of like, yeah, once you know yourself, you can know the world. Once you heal yourself, you can heal the world. You can heal people around you, right? But I remember taking a course in school back in the day at my Buddhist inspired university. And it was so brilliant because it was talking about what we're talking about to an extent. It was talking about how to treat your business as an animate object, as a living entity. And we were discussing the principles of traditional Chinese medicine, which is also one of the healing modalities and theosophies that I use in my work too today. But if you don't know it, highly suggest you look it up. The 5-element theory, right? There's fire and earth and metal and water and wood, and also air is the 6th. But depending on the elements of earth and, you know, what might be imbalanced within you can also be imbalanced in your business. So for example, fire is classically more a divine masculine energy, whereas earth is classically more a divine feminine energy. And we all have these things within us. But then there's also metal, which is about strength and stability. There's water, which is about flow. And there's wood, which is about growth. And so there's such nuance here because if you go into more Ayurvedic study or traditional Chinese medicine, you can locate the organs, the meridians, the chi pathways, the energy in your system that might not be flowing to their fullest potential. And that subconsciously might also show up in business as far as like, why am I showing up with such fire? And I need to like calm the heck down. Like I'm constantly going, I'm constantly spinning my wheels, and I'm almost not getting anywhere. And we need to like rebalance those energies. And so treating it from an energetic and holistic standpoint can really help us tap in a deeper way.
Yeah, I love that so much. And yeah, I really think that truly, I think being more holistic, and I think also like that will help us listen to our heart and our intuition more and just be more authentic and present and maybe remove some of the stress layers, right?
Absolutely. And it's so real to tune into the micro versus macro. Like we are all microcosms of what's going on a macro level. And subconsciously, we're all connected, whether that's through our thoughts or our feelings or sensations. And you'll hear people talk about this a lot with dream state, or if you listen to psychics that are channeling or whatever. Like there's no matter what vocabulary is your vocabulary, there's continuity amongst all of these things, right? And so there's just a way in which we can question and be more inquiring about where's this energy coming from? Is it even mine? Because I know personally, for me, I am a Cancer. I'm a very fluid, emotional being, and I'm very impacted by the moon, for example, and especially super moons and new moons and full moons. And I will, without a doubt, not sleep on full moons, right? And there's some subconscious connection there. And the moon represents the subconscious. It's the divine feminine compared to the sun, which is more of a masculine energy. And so just coming into a session, if, for example, there was a full moon, I love highlighting those types of things just to plant seeds for clients to let them know, hey, if you're feeling super tumultuous right now, if there's a lot of turmoil, you're not alone, first of all. And secondly, like, look outside your environment, see what it is that might be informing some of these things as far as the container you're being held in, because we can only feel like it's our fault, quote unquote, to an extent, because there's so many external variables that are also informing our reality. And that's why I really help people go deeper in, because once you drop into your emotional landscape and you heal yourself on a cellular level, the things around you do start to shift. And so we can't control other people, we can't control their things, but we can harmonize with them in a bigger way.
I think, like not everybody is at that, I don't want to call it woo woo, but place where there is that outer power, right? Like it exists. It's a fact that stuff is happening, whether you know it, whether you believe it or not. Yeah. It's happening. And I know, like for myself, sometimes I'll be like sitting in my computer and I'm like, oh, I can't focus. Like, what is wrong with me? Right. But then, like, not too long ago, I was made aware that, it could be that, like, we all have moments. I don't know if it's for all of us, but like our cycles, for example, right, make a difference. And like, and I've started paying more attention to that. And I'm like, huh, right? Like there's like a week out of the month that I'm kind of like, my brain is, and I'm like all over the place a little bit. But I think that, being aware and maybe understanding a little bit, maybe we understand a lot. Maybe you're listening to this and you're totally, or maybe this is like the beginning of understanding some of this stuff for you. But I think that whether you know it or you don't know it, or you understand or not understand, it's happening with or without us, right? So I think that it's definitely can help us understand and be better in our business, right?
Oh, 100%. And this is why this really matters, in my opinion. It's really not about the woo-woo. I totally agree with you. Like, it's there whether or not you believe it. I say that about the subconscious. Like, subconscious, the word in itself, people are like, that sounds spiritual. That sounds shamanic. That sounds woo-woo. And to be honest, it's the 95% of the brain rooted in science. It's part of our physiology. It's part of our anatomy. You can study that all you want and learn that that's just true, right? If you don't believe that that's true, okay, but like, let's have a conversation about how well you're feeling in your life right now, right? There's a reason why that exists. And I kind of yesterday actually compared the subconscious mind to the concept of faith or spirituality. It's like you know that it's there. You feel that it's there, even if you can't see it. We know our heart is beating for us, but we don't necessarily see that happening. We breathe, we yawn, we blink. All of these things are involuntary experiences that are part of a greater cosmic knowing, right? And it lives within us. And at the same time, it's outside of us. And so the moon and the 5 elements and all of these different things that we can talk about as a framework are really mirroring that unseen world or that invisible realm within us. And the reason why it's so important to understand this, in my opinion, and everyone has their own agency to have their own belief systems, and that's completely valid. This doesn't have to be your belief system, right? But I find when we don't have a connection to the unseen or to the things that are out there that we can't really understand in a logical way, it's a quick, direct route to staying stuck in the mind. Because it's so easy to slip into what's wrong with me? Why has this happened? This is all my fault. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it. And those thought patterns start developing into dis-ease in the body, and they show up as symptoms the only way that they know how, because they're messengers. They're expressing things that haven't been fully processed or things that are not aligned with us. And so I once had a college professor say to me something so brilliant. He said, sometimes the answers are in the questions. And so even if you don't have concrete evidence or firsthand experience to validate what we're talking about, I would highly encourage you to start asking more questions, because in the critical thinking is discernment. In the questioning of like, is this really my energy right now that I'm having to shift? Or did I maybe catch on to somebody else's because I need stronger boundaries in this moment, right? Like, just asking that question starts to shift a lot of that energy and opens up our world to newer possibilities.
Awesome. Okay, how does healing yourself impact the world? Because I think, and I say this all the time, we can all use healing, no matter what, no matter who, no matter, even if you're like good and everything's fine, I think there's still a place to get healing, right?
Oh my gosh, it is an infinite experience, because consciousness is a continuum. It's like we come in with ancient DNA. We have connections to our generational patterns and lineages. We have connections to past lives. We have connections to present day and future experiences. Like all of these things, like time is a construct. It's an illusion. It's man-made. And so we have so much wisdom below the surface. And that's what I really like to geek out about. But it's a wild question that you ask, because funny enough, I've had these phrases follow me throughout my life, and I've said one of them already, but at my Buddhist inspired university, their tagline, literally on their logos, on their flyers, everything was transform yourself, transform the world. I then proceeded to take a certification that helps inform what I offer right now in my life, and it's integrative care in nature. But the tagline for that was heal yourself, heal the world. And so I love this question of what does that really mean in a practical way? Because we've already identified that we can't control other people. We can't change what's going on out there to an extent. And it's not really about wanting to do that anyway. But when you shift how you feel and how your operating system works by default, because we're all defaulted, we all have these programs to keep us alive and survive and be in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn state. And sometimes that's going on without us even knowing it. So when we can shift the cellular memory that's responsible for that program, we shift how we relate to everything around us. And so in a really basic way, if you're into energy or the concept of energy, and energy is everything, it's not just spiritual, it's science, right? And I love talking about the intersection of those things. But if you're around somebody who has a good vibe, you're going to probably end up feeling really good by the time you leave them. If you're surrounding yourself with somebody who doesn't feel so good and they're kind of a mess energetically, you might walk away feeling not so good. And so you can see this in so many different frameworks out there. But one of them is like the law of attraction would talk about vibrational resonance. And if you hit a tuning fork, there's a tuning fork next to it that you didn't hit, it's going to start vibrating the same way because it's resonating with that tuning fork. Right. So we are these tuning forks. We have vibration. We have these hertz frequencies that we're spitting out. We are electrical systems. And when we shift our vibe, we get to shift the consciousness of those around us without even saying a word, which is so powerful.
Or trying to change them.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's the most important thing, because I get curious and a little skeptical if somebody comes into me and they're like, oh, if only my mom would be this way, or if only I could change my partner's behavior, everything would be good. Like the if this, then that mentality is a black and white method that keeps us all really stuck. And it's easy to point fingers and play the blame game, but we always have to take responsibility for our lives and our role in our relationships and our situations. And so if we're looking outside of ourselves at the expense of looking in, then there's an imbalance. Vice versa. If we're looking inside ourselves and in that self-aware addiction too much to look outside ourselves, there's an imbalance. But we find the harmony when we understand that we're co-creative beings, that we have these relationships that are co-operating, and that when we shift our end of the spectrum, then the rest of it starts to shift too.
Wow, that's kind of powerful in a way, right?
Very powerful.
Yeah.
And we're so much more powerful than we think we are. And that's why I love dropping deeper into that power, because it's beyond comprehension. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So you were talking about vibrations. So what impact does vibration play in scaling your business? And I think that we could probably talk about this for a day, but in your words, and go, Paige.
No pressure. No pressure at all. Well, this is important because vibration is energy, is physics, is quantum, is everything. And at the same time, you hear people more in the New Age metaphysical community, which I don't necessarily identify with. I'm very rooted in the science, but there's also, spiritual aspects to it, depending on who I serve. But it's important to understand that a lot of people in this world manifest their way out of everything. I'm saying quote unquote manifest, or they law of attraction themselves out of everything. And there's a fine line between using vibration in a practical embodied way and using it in a disembodied and bypassing way. And sometimes when we're in a certain moment, it's all valuable and we need all parts of the spectrum. And it's no one's fault when we're in that place. There's always reason for it, but it's hard to discern when we're in an embodied or disembodied space, especially if we have trauma, if we have feelings of chronic unsafety in our lives, and this is all we know is to be constantly dysregulated. So it can be easier to kind of get outside the body and drop more into the spiritual etheric realm. So what role does vibration play in scaling your business? In my opinion, the long and the short is everything, because you line up with what your vibrational vantage point is. And so I find that success comes from people who are really authentic. At the same time, the world has a shadow, because where there's shadow, there's light. Where there's light, there's shadow. And we see a lot of people in the world that have a lot of money, and maybe we have certain feelings about them as people that are less than awesome. Right. And so we get to be curious about what their vibrational standpoint is too. And I think the most important thing to take away from this conversation is that we are not in charge of anyone else's vibration. And the more we get caught in the analysis paralysis and trying to figure out what somebody else is doing that gives them success, we have to also take accountability for the fact that we're perceiving their reality in a way that's not real. It's not necessarily true what we're perceiving to be true. And so we have to stay our course, stay in our lane, figure out how to, be our best, most integrous versions of ourselves, and then see what happens, see how the universe is going to mirror that back to you.
I love that. And you know how you said, like, also you see someone having success and being rich. I mean, I follow a few and I use it as inspiration. And like, it's just so cool, and inspiring. And I just love it. Anyway, but that whole thing about they could be going through shit too. We don't even know, right? Like, we just don't know. And so how can you look at someone and you only see the outside of it, right? You don't see the inside. And so that can be deceiving, like you said, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I also acknowledge that there's probably people listening / people in the world out there that are really good people and that are working their hardest. And at the same time, to hear somebody say it's all about vibrational alignment, like that's infuriating. Like that can feel invalidating if we're in a certain place in our lives where we're like, oh my gosh, I'm trying so hard. And you're telling me it can be so much easier. Like that's really causes a lot of friction because the mind is wired in such a way to only receive certain things at certain times in our life. And so this is why I love working with people to like massage their way up the vibrational energy field instead of going from 0 to 60, because I want everyone to feel so good and rich and wealthy and abundant in their lives. Right. And it's no one's fault to not be in that standpoint. There's so many reasons why we have circumstances in the way that we have them. And my work is really just to help people relate to those circumstances better so that those circumstances start to shift. That's why I feel that it's easy, because when you kind of break it down in that digestible way, has nothing to do with who you are as a person or who you're not. It just has everything to do with let's get you feeling better and then see what happens.
Okay. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. You know how they say, like, and then you let it go, and just trust, right? That the universe has your back, that, what do you say about this whole let it go thing?
Oh my gosh. I'm laughing because, yeah, it's like those infuriating clauses where, for example, if you go up to somebody who's feeling depressed and you're like, just be happy. If you go up to somebody who has an eating disorder and you're like, just eat, right? It's something that's so hard to stomach and it's so frustrating in those moments. And for somebody who's holding on because they have to, because it's all they know, if you are like, well, just let it go and it'll all happen for you, it's equally infuriating and invalidating. And so it's funny timing. And as you said, there's no coincidences. I just had a client last week and she's been doing subconscious healing work, not with me, but with other people in the world for 20 years. And she's been working with me for some months now. And, here I am with all this understanding of her history. And I'm like, hopefully I can do something different to make a different drop in this ocean. But she came to me and she was like, our last session, she was like, I'm so tired of people telling me to let it go. She was like, I've listened to Eckhart Tolle, I've listened to Abraham Hicks, I've listened to, this, that, and the other. And I'm just so tired of it because I don't know what that means. And sometimes we hear these simple phrases and we don't have the ability to digest or integrate the vibration that's being carried behind it. And it's one of those things where it's like, if we all could just be happy, wouldn't we just be happy? And for people who are happy, it feels that easy. But for people who aren't, we have to use a different approach. And that's why I use a subconscious approach, because everyone that we talk to, everyone that I work with, everyone in the world is really smart. And there's so much value behind why we have these hangups and coping skills and things that we've developed to keep us alive. And we don't always want to be having those things dominate our life, right? And so, yeah, you can say a million times, just let it go, let it go, let it go. But what are you going to say for the person who's had trauma that is literally in the thick of it? Or what are you going to say about someone who's still hung up over their parents' divorce and it's infiltrating all their present relationships, right? This is why, like, the mind doesn't know the difference between memory and reality and imagination. And so even for something that happened in the past on a cellular chemical level, it feels like it's still happening. We're caught on these loops. So saying just let it go is kind of moot, in my opinion, until we get to a certain vibrational place where they can really understand what that means for themselves.
Wow, I love that insight. That was good. That was like a full, like the all we needed for the episode was this. So, okay. So imagining myself dancing in the street singing Let It Go.
Yes.
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. And I think that, wow, like if the people who say the whole let it go and, it will come to you needs to go further, right? Like in the explanation of let it go. But you're right, like each individual, this will relate to them differently. And that makes so much sense what you just said. Wow.
I'm so glad. And the last part about that too is that sometimes, and this is like a whole other tangent that we could talk about for another day, but sometimes it depends on how people prefer to process, because conscious processors, for example, talk therapy type of people, if that works for you, it can feel really good sometimes to talk about the past. It can feel really bad sometimes to talk about the past. I was just talking to somebody, a colleague yesterday, who was mentioning that she doesn't really reflect on anything. She's a present person and focuses on the future. And from a trauma informed, standpoint, I get curious about, well, how are you with that? Like, does that serve you? In the same way, I'd get curious for the talk therapy person, like, how are you? How does that serve you to keep talking about your past? And how does that help you progress into your present and future in an integrated, embodied way? And so I think it really does depend on how you treat things consciously versus how you treat them subconsciously, because sometimes we get split brain. It's like our conscious knowing part is like, yeah, I know I got to let it go, obviously. But the subconscious part that's responsible for holding on is like, I'm still helping you. I'm still trying to protect you from whatever it is that it's perceiving you're in distress about. So then the conscious and subconscious parts start fighting, and then there's disharmony within the system. And I find that that's often what happens in our mind when we're judging ourselves for feeling mad, or we get sad about being frustrated, or angry about being sad, right? There's so many layers to why we feel how we feel. So I just help people organize all of those parts a little bit.
It's really good to hear you talk about this, because there comes a point in our life or in our journey where it's time to get the help from someone who can unblock this for us, who can unlock this for us. And like we talked about, like whether it's talking therapy, but at the beginning, you were talking about generational trauma or lineage trauma, or sometimes past life stuff, right? Like sometimes it's like you need help from someone who knows what they're doing, knows what they're, that they've studied the ways that they can unlock this for you. So I think it's important to also be mindful and know that they get to a place where you're like, okay, I've done what I could myself. I think now it's time to move on to finding the person who may help me to unlock this, whatever it is for you. If you're listening and you're like, oh my God, like these girls are really talking to me, like, sometimes you need to move to the next step, right? Like there's only so much we can do on our own, and there is stuff like we can do certain things on her own to unlock, unblock, heal, whatever it is for you. But there comes a point where we need to move to the next phase, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe it's working with Paige.
I mean, I would be so thrilled about that if this resonates for you all. But truly, this is what informs my why. This is what informs my work, is because I find that the question, why, is the most crippling question on the planet, because that's the conscious mind trying so hard to figure it out and stay in control and understand. When in reality, when we drop deeper, and maybe this is a reframe from the just let it go, is dropping deeper into your own knowing so that you can learn your own answers. That's what I'm really passionate about helping people do. And we do journey. We journey into the generations and the past lives and the present trauma and the childhood and all of that stuff, because it's never just one thing. And I have found more often than not that I would never walk into a therapy session, and I love therapy for those who know me, but I would never walk into a therapy session and have any reason to think that the part of me that exists 3 days after conception or 1 month in utero has anything to do with my present day stress. And that's what we uncover. And once we uncover those things that have been so stored and stuck in the subconscious, whether it's from age 2 or age 5 or past life in AD or BC, like there's all this ancient wisdom that we have access to that we can unlock and then cellularly reprogram and heal that to match you in your present day experience, so that we're not living as past versions of ourselves. And I help people befriend the unseen world because it's my favorite thing. I've always been kind of a geek about figuring out how you could feel energy and pick up on certain signals and understand that there's so much that, beyond what meets the eye. And I love helping people know that that's really where the sweet spot is.
Yeah, that's really cool. And also knowing that, it may not necessarily be something in this lifetime, right? It could be something that we carry with us from past, that just like, because sometimes we can't figure it out. Like me, like, there's shit I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, that's gotta be past life stuff, right? Because I'm like, there's no time in this lifetime that I feel that this came from. Like, it's like, I know.
Exactly. And having like the answers to some of those inquiries is so helpful, because then you really can let it go. You're like, okay, I'm not going to be victim of my circumstances. I'm going to actually heal from them. And sometimes in business, we have so many people with money stuff, right? We all have our money stuff. And whether that comes from parents or great grandparents, or maybe it comes from our own conditioned ways in society, or maybe it comes from a past life of having scarcity complex or not having much money at all. Like, there's so much catharsis in just being able to organize in place and therefore unburden your system from holding on to whatever perceptions we've developed as a result of it. Because the worst thing is to develop limiting beliefs, and we all have them, whether we know it or not, to develop limiting beliefs that we then are working so hard to grind and build a business. But the limiting belief at the root is I'm not worthy, or I'm broke, or I can't do it, or I don't really believe in myself, or I'm afraid. All of those things at some point in time are likely familiar statements for people in business and trying to figure it out. But those programs at the root, it's like you could try everything under the sun, and there's something that still won't be working at the end of the day because of these things. And so unless and until we drop a bit deeper, like, everyone has that infinite potential available to them, but I find that we lack understanding as to how to get there. And that's what I want to help bridge the gap in doing.
Yeah, so maybe this is part of you spreading your message with the world, or do you want to add to that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's so much here that we've talked about today, and it's so vast. And I really just work to offer a structure and a container in a really gentle and embodied way to help people unleash and unlock their own superpowers, their own infinite wisdom. And it's not for me to know anything about somebody else that they don't know about themselves. I think self-awareness is really cool and important, but it doesn't shift dominant behaviors that are keeping us stuck. And so I am here to support people that are going through a really hard time. And I really focus in on those that struggle with depression, anxiety, trauma, addiction, heal on a cellular level. And this is the new modern movement. Like, this is the science of epigenetics. This is helping people know that we are not our past. We are not our conditioned beliefs. We are not our circumstances. We are here to heal and thrive no matter what.
And there's enough abundance in the world for every single one of us, right?
Totally. And we all
we can
define
go
that.
and reach for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all define it differently. And as you were saying about success, we all define success differently. And so, it's not for me to say what that is for you. It's for you to find for you. And so I just love helping people figure that out.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So you have an awesome freebie. It's the Affirmation and Resource Kit for Sustained Health and Wellness. So tell us in a nutshell what that is and why everybody needs to grab it.
Absolutely. I know it's a mouthful. So this is a comprehensive guide. It's a choose your own adventure playground. And
Oh, I love those.
Yes, because everyone, as we said before, it's an information overload world that we live in. And that's not my goal. My goal is to help you start somewhere. So whether you're kickstarting your healing journey or you're complementing what you're already doing, there's affirmations, there's experientials, there's things to help you disrupt certain habitual behavior that's not serving you. So there's different categories in there for acute and chronic pain, food, water, resting, detoxing, whatever it is that you want to focus on. And then you can just take it at your own pace. The most important thing is that you start. And I would say commit to one thing, and it can be as small as an extra glass of water a day. It could be as big as I'm going to start this program and do some subconscious healing with Paige. But no matter what you're doing right now to help yourself, do it for 3 weeks and then start incorporating more stuff. Because once you work that self-trust, self-care muscle, it gets a lot easier to vibe higher for sure.
So I'll put that link in the show notes for everybody. So make sure you grab that. And Paige, like, you're so awesome. And it's been so awesome talking about all this stuff with you. But people are curious and they want to know more. And so tell us, how can they work with you? What are your offers? Just tell us more, because I'm sure there's people listening being like, oh my God, like this girl they vibe with you. I know I vibe with you, but they want to know more.
Absolutely. Yes. So my website is my business's name. So it's www.innerrealmwellness.life, innerrealmwellness.life. And you will get so much information there about what we would do in session together. And then I'm also available a lot on social media for free content, free resources. So my handles for Facebook and Instagram, same thing, is just at Inner Realm Wellness. And I'd love to hear from you. You can comment or DM me and just tell me how you felt about this episode. But if you would like to work with me, my booking link is on my website, and you can see all the different types of offers. I really work well one-on-one with people. That's the biggest thing. I also have been working with teens and kids, depending on what's going on with folks too in the family system. But I do 60, 75-minute and 90-minute intake 90-minute intake sessions to start, but 60, 75, and 90-minute sessions subsequently, if you're interested in connecting. And I would love to see you there.
That's amazing. Well, Paige, this has been such a good conversation. And I know we could have talked about this stuff all day, because it's like you said, right? Like this is like, kind of like the nuts and bolts, but we can expand on every single thing we talked about, right? So, but I think this is a beginning of a conversation. So definitely, if you're listening to this, make sure you go find Paige on socials or her website or anything like that, because I think it's always good to have someone like you in our back pocket, right? Whether it's, from inspiring content on social, or being on your email list and receiving, different things from you, or working with you. So I think definitely do that. So thanks again, Paige. It's been so nice talking to you, and I can't wait to chat again.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
You're welcome. And if you're listening to this, I will talk to you on the next episode.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Build Your Beautiful Business podcast. If you did, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Julie's included a link in the shows to make it nice and easy for you. And if you want to create a beautiful, profitable business of your own, make sure to go unlock your access to Julie's 6 must-have resources for female entrepreneurs. These resources will help you build and grow your business with simplicity and ease. You can find them at juliecbutler.com/freebie vault. We'll see you in the next episode.